Glencairn Museum was built between 1928 and 1939 by craftspeople hired by Raymond and Mildred Pitcairn. It looks like a medieval castle, but it was actually the private home of the Pitcairns and their 9 children. Now, it's a museum with ancient art and religious artifacts from all over the world. In this series, we're discussing life in medieval Europe, a period which lasted from about 500 CE to 1500 CE. One of the ways historians talk about the people who lived during that time is to divide them into 3 categories: those who worked, those who prayed, and those who fought. These 3 groups had many things in common, such as where they lived and what they believed. However, there are also many differences between them due to the roles in society that they were born into. Some people were born into tremendous wealth and power and lived privileged, safe lives. Other people were born into poverty and struggled to feed themselves and their families. Life was easier for some people and harder for others, and the reasons for that were rarely fair. Now let's talk about this object, a sculpture made of wood. It was carved in Germany in the 15th century, which is somewhere in the 1400s. It shows a man standing over some sort of creature. He's holding a sword and wearing armor. The man is a knight, a warrior who rode a horse, wore armor, and defended the land and people he was allied to. Knights were part of those who fought, which included the wealthy ruling class who owned land. By talking about knights, we're going to be discovering how dividing people into categories doesn't always work out perfectly. A knight is someone who fought, but they're also someone who prayed. Imagine someone who has been training to be a knight for their whole lives, ever since they were 7 or 8. Tomorrow is the big day. They're finally going to have their knighting ceremony. Before that, though, there are steps that must be completed. The evening before their ceremony, they'd take a bath and put on new clothes, a symbol of purity and of washing away their past to start a new chapter in their life. Then they would come to a church or chapel, lay their weapon in front of the altar, and hold a vigil, which meant staying up all night praying. The knights that we're talking about practiced a religion that today we call Catholicism, a type of Christianity. Now, in the morning, a peasant and the noble that the knight would be working for would come into the chapel. The priest would bless this sword, symbolizing that their power as a knight comes from God as long as they fought in his name. The priest would pass the sword to the noble, who would ask for a vow of obedience, and the noble would dub the knight. As a knight, they also had to uphold the peace of God and the truce of God, which specified when they could fight and who they could fight against. Medieval knights were also expected to be chivalrous, which meant living a life of loyalty, courtesy, bravery, mercy, and many other virtuous qualities. As a knight, they might wear a suit of armor, similar to what we see in this sculpture. This knight is also wearing something called mail, which is made of interlocking metal links, and the whole suit could weigh up to 30 pounds. They might also carry a sword or another type of weapon. Now, we can't be absolutely positive, but the knight in this sculpture could be someone named Saint George, a popular hero for many medieval knights. Saint George was born in modern-day Turkey to a wealthy family and trained as a soldier before leaving the army because of his religious beliefs. This sculpture shows a well-known medieval legend about Saint George. The story goes that one day he arrived in a village held captive by a dragon. The people of the village were trying to keep the dragon happy by feeding it sheep. But before long, they ran out of sheep. forcing them to feed villagers to the dragon instead. On the day that St. George arrived in the village, the Princess Margaret was being led away to the dragon. St. George was horrified and battled the dragon, slaying it and saving Margaret. In this sculpture, St. George is just about to do away with the dragon once and for all. Historians think that St. George was a real person who helped many people, but probably didn't actually slay any dragons. Thanks for joining me to learn about medieval knights and the legend of St. George. If you'd like to learn more about life in medieval Europe, check out the other videos in this series about scribes, stonemasons, monks, and nuns. To learn more about the museum, you can visit glencairnmuseum.org.